Welcome back. We are continuing with our Aspiring Leaders series here with Lunch and Learn from Professional Learning. Today, we're going to be covering a day in the life of a supervisor. So I'm going to turn it over to this great group that we have for some quick introductions.
Hello, I'm Katrina Carey, the Supervisor of History and Social Sciences Instruction.
I'm Stuart Jones. I'm the Supervisor of Advanced Instruction and World Languages.
Hello all, I'm Caitlin Leitner, the Supervisor of Science Instruction.
Hi, I'm Julie Masters. I'm a Special Education Supervisor.
All right, well, thank you all so much for joining me. I had shared with this group previously that they were selected because there's so many different levels of expertise here, different journeys to get to this point. So I'm really excited to share their wisdom with you all. So we're going to jump in with our first question for the group, which is, describe your leadership journey. How did you begin building your leadership skills and seeking out those leadership opportunities?
What a great question, Chelsea. I'll start if you all do not mind. I feel like I'm probably the youngest here. So starting out on my journey within leadership, I started as a 5th grade classroom teacher and instantly fell in love with the curriculum and instruction side of things. Knowing that bouncing straight from a teacher into a supervisor role is not really heard of, I started seeking out different opportunities. I became grade level chair. I started applying for the Virginia Department of Education state committees. And I actually then obtained my master's degree in curriculum instruction. After I received that degree, I applied and received the specialist role, the science specialist role, which then has now promoted me to the supervisor of science. So that is my educational and leadership journey thus far.
I think Caitlin makes a great point of when you're a teacher, that is the best time to really seek out various leadership roles. My roles, as a teacher, I followed a similar path in terms of leadership that Caitlin did, applying to VDOE curriculum type committees, seeking opportunities in the district, making connections with people in other buildings. Just anytime there was something that came up or someone asked me to present or whatever the case may be, even if it wasn't my comfort zone, I still kind of stepped out and took advantage of those opportunities. And then because of that, I was able to start considering myself, for other things that were coming open. So when I came to Suffolk, I was a veteran teacher of a whole 4 years. And while at Forest Glen, I got to participate in a lot of things. But from that, I became an academic coach at John F. Kennedy for several years. And then following that opportunity, I was a lead teacher for middle school social studies in English. And then that led to my current position, which is supervisor of history and social sciences K-12. But all the while, as we're moving through those different positions, we're still seeking those leadership opportunities, stepping out and doing things that might be a little bit out of our comfort zone, presenting at a conference, doing things that we wouldn't ordinarily do, but really honing in on our leadership abilities, because as we move forward in our journey, as we take different positions, they require many different things. So you always are constantly growing and looking for those opportunities.
So I have to say that Caitlin and Katrina make a good point, and looking for those opportunities within your current teaching position for leadership roles. I've been in special ed. This is my 36th year. So yes, Caitlin, I'm probably the oldest one of this group. But I started as a teacher in Suffolk for 8 years, and then I became a hospital teacher at Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters. At that job, I had an opportunity to do a lot with assistive technology, to work with kids that had that were medically fragile, and I had opportunities to do a lot of presentations. So then I became a special education teacher with CSEP, which is a specialized program for students with autism. That was the program that I was in, which again gave me opportunities to learn and to do presentations. And then I came back to Suffolk. I was like coming back home, and I became the assistive technology specialist. And I had opportunities to work with ESY, which is extended school year for students with special needs. And that led to me getting my EDS in school administration. And I continued as an ESY administrator until I got my current position, which is a supervisor of special education.
And I would echo much of what's already been said in terms of leadership journey. The one thing that I would add is when I first started teaching, I thought that all I wanted to do was to teach and to coach. And I loved just working with students and helping students grow and really to reach their fullest potential. And so that coaching aspect, I think, really helped me start on my leadership journey. It wasn't leadership over adults, obviously, but it was obviously working with, a team and really building their capacity to work together towards a common goal. And from there, it started jumping into a lot of the similar opportunities that everyone's already spoken of. I was department chair at previous schools where I've worked for social studies, which was the subject area where I taught. And also volunteering for Portsmouth when I taught there. They had something called a school improvement team chair and took that leadership role as well and helping to kind of build my capacity to work with other departments beyond mine. In addition to the VDOE, I would also recommend for teachers to really seek out opportunities with their regional organizations for the subject areas that they teach. For me, for my past 4 years prior to having this position, I've served as IB coordinator at Kings Fork High School, and when I took on that role, I immediately started attending our Mid-Atlantic regional group for IB schools and pursued leadership opportunities within that group as well. So if the VDOE might seem daunting initially to join for committees and that kind of thing, there's other regional groups for your subject areas that might be opportunities to seek out as well.
Stuart, I concur there. And just as a sum up, I always love this statement that I heard, I believe from Mr. Skinner, leadership is action. Right. So kind of looking at our journeys, how we've got here thus far, but also what we're doing currently still now as aspiring leaders, trying to continue to grow and build in our expertise. So I think that is definitely a large key here, as in continuing that education. The learning never stops.
Absolutely. I mean, finding those opportunities to volunteer within your own building, with across the division with the same subject area. I think those are excellent kind of entry pathways to leadership roles as you go forward in your career.
That's great. Thank you all so much for your insights. This has become one of my favorite parts because I learned so much more about our colleagues here in Suffolk. And I also really liked how Katrina had pushed us all to step outside of our comfort zone. I think that's a really good point and something that's come up a few times through the course of some of these interviews that we've been doing. To echo Caitlin's thoughts, I heard a quote the other day that our goal should really be continuous learning for continuous improvement. And, to that point, I think the learning never stops. So I really appreciate all the wisdom that's already been shared in just our first question. So moving on, the second question. So for anyone who might be considering a move to SAO specialist supervisor type role, please describe what a typical day might look like within your current role as an SPS supervisor.
I think we'll all say there's probably not a typical day. That's probably our standard answer. But I think there are themes to the school year, and kind of different things that we focus on throughout the school year. Obviously, at the beginning of the school year, we're really developing our plans for what our department's focus is going to be for the year, and what we're going to really work on. For me, for advanced instruction, there's actually a lot of little things that go on throughout the year. There's gifted screening, there's the governor's school and Project Lead the Way and IB and all of our specialty programs and getting them going. So there's recruitment for that. So during that time of year, I'm focused on that. And of course, now we're focused on curriculum writing and really revising our curriculum, especially if there's been new standards that have come out from the state, and really working on that part of it as well. So the typical day depends on what time of year and what day it is.
I like the way you phrase that, Stuart, because I think it's, for lack of a better term, seasonal for us. It really depends on what's the major piece in some instances that's happening right now. If it's SOL testing time, sometimes leading to that stretch. We're looking at how we can support buildings. We're looking at data a little bit closer, things like that. If it's the beginning of the year, like Mr. Jones said, then we're making our plans for our department and things that we want to do, what our citywide meetings will look like, what our initiatives are going to be for the year, and how we're going to carry those out. So there's not necessarily a typical day, because sometimes we'll come in and what our plans are may change based on other things that are happening that we need to stop and put that to the side for a moment and address those. So we really don't have a typical day. But we do have themes that go throughout the year and things that we're working on that we, set out to achieve.
Katrina, I have to agree with you, because in special education, I don't know if there's ever a routine day for us, because things are ever changing. But I do agree with Katrina that there are times of year that certain things are more pressing, such as we've just completed our Virginia Alternative Assessment Program, assessments for our students with significant disabilities. So we've got those turned in, and they've already been scored. We're also looking, constantly looking at data, constantly looking at supporting our teachers that are out there on the front line with our students. And it's never changing. We continue to talk with parents, we're talking with teachers, we're talking with administrators, and that is ongoing. So no 2 days are ever the same.
I could not agree more. What we do, Chelsea, is we do what's best for kids. So while we have themes and while it depends on the day, it depends on the season, I echo Katrina and Stuart as well as Julie. We have assessments, we have data, we have best effective teaching strategies. We have all of those things day to day. I think Mr. Jones said before, it kind of depends the next email that we get. Is it a fire that we need to address right now to kind of shift what our day brings? Specifically in regard to the science department, a little bit different as our other core content areas. I do a lot of networking with colleges. I do a lot of networking with partners. We have a ton of initiatives in the science department. So we're definitely always on the phone trying to get partnerships and grants and opportunities for hands-on learning for our students. So that's a little bit of a side note, a lot of collaboration with our other core content areas within the division as well as outside of the division to ensure we get the best possible opportunities for our students. So that's a little side note for the science department specifically.
And I do want to highlight that last word that soon to be Dr. Leitner said, which was that collaboration. A typical day for at least what I found is when we're doing our jobs well, a typical day involves high levels of collaboration. When we're struggling, it's because we try to take it all on our own. And so that collaboration, especially with the group, that I've worked with this year, being my first year in this position, that collaboration has really defined a typical day, no matter what we're focused on.
So I think when we're listening to Ms. Leitner and Mr. Jones talk about that collaboration, is that theme of building relationships. So building relationships with your colleagues is super important, whether you're a teacher in a building or a supervisor. And as supervisors, we definitely collaborate with each other. But that also leads me to the other part, and just referring back to something that Ms. Leitner said, which is part of our jobs is to build relationships with teachers and administrators and staff as well. Because all the things that we're doing, and we're doing what's best for kids, we need your support in doing so. Without that collaborative relationship with you all, it's not as achievable as it could be. So we really do focus on building relationships not only with each other as supervisors, but with school staff and administration as well.
I have to say, Katrina, we don't operate in silos. So it's always a good day for me when I do get to collaborate, not only with teachers and administrators, but with different departments. I know you and I, Katrina, have worked together with some of my teachers that provide instruction for students in our program classes. And that was a great collaboration. And I certainly hope that we have an opportunity to do that again soon.
Absolutely. You know where my office is, Julie.
Yes, I do.
All right, well, thank you so much. So the next question that we have is, what's something that maybe potentially surprised you about your current role, something that you might not have expected?
I'm going to jump right on here. So, surprising of my role. Type A person here with my checklist and my to-do list, and I have it written down for the day, and I'm going to get it done. No, ma'am, no, sir. That is not how this job works. Flexibility is definitely what I have learned. And I would say surprised me, I guess, in my personal leadership ability. So realizing trying to figure out how to juggle many different things at one time. So the to-do list, while it is important and while we stay true to that to-do list, realizing that sometimes things fluctuate and have to be shifted to a different, I guess, numerical value when looking at what our day-to-day brings.
I have to agree with that. But for special education, one of the biggest surprises for me when I first came into this position is how much special education relies on IDEA, which is Individuals with Disability Act. And so I rely heavily on those regs. And a lot of our decisions, all of our decisions are based on those regs. And there are times that we have to call the State Department to get some clarification, or we have to look at the data to determine how that relates to IDEA. So certainly having those regs in my hand at all times has been crucial.
I'm gonna follow up on what Ms. Leitner said. The constant need to rearrange and to kind of reprioritize was certainly surprising for me. You know, I agree. I thought I would have my to-do list and I'd have it kind of all mapped out, and you just got to be willing to change that on a not just weekly but a daily basis, just depending on whatever the needs are. You know, you're responding. You're not just planning what you're going to do for the year. You're also responding to the needs of others, and the needs of others don't come on a schedule. So you have to be ready to prepare and be ready to respond to that. I wouldn't say this is surprising, but it's been really a great thing for me to see, and that is how much other people are willing to help when you come into a new leadership role, especially for this position. You know, it oversees gifted, which I don't have a specific background in gifted at the elementary level. At least my focus is on high schools, and also world languages where I don't have a background. And they're teachers in both groups. The willingness for them to help and to assist and to collaborate. It wasn't surprising, but it was reassuring that level of collaboration certainly exists. You know, throughout our division.
For sure. I kind of feel like every day is a surprise, right? Because we come in with a plan, and like we said, we come in with our list and what we're going to do, and we're going to do this. And sometimes as soon as we sit down, there's something new. So I think every day lends itself to a surprise or something that you weren't thinking what you were going to tackle, but now it's on your list to tackle. But I also feel like, and this isn't necessarily a surprising part, but as you think about what you're doing in your leadership role, just keeping in mind that what you think you know about your job, there's always something else that you learn every day about your job that you didn't know. And that's okay, because it's a part of the learning and growing process. But I think that's the biggest surprise, is that when we apply for positions, sometimes, if we've been active in leadership opportunities or watching other people in the role, or assisting them with certain things, then you think you kind of know what the gist of it is, and you've read the job description, and then when you get in it, you find out there are things that you didn't even know. So the roller coaster ride begins, and you learn something new every day.
I think that's great. And I really like, in particular, when Stuart was talking about the needs of others not coming on a schedule, I think that really speaks to the fact that this is a group of people who are really dedicated to supporting instructional staff, students, one another. So I definitely think that's something, if you are considering a move in this direction, that you need to be willing and ready and eager to collaborate and support others. Because to get it, as Caitlin said, to help do what's best for students, a lot of times in this role, that means helping support teachers and other instructional staff to ensure they have all they need to be able to do what is best for kids. So to close out, and I've really enjoyed our time together today, I'm sad to see it come to an end. But for our final question, what I'd like to ask you is, what advice would you give to someone pursuing leadership in education, and just any final thoughts that you have?
I think one of the things that you have to remember that your journey is yours. There's no timeline for you to decide if you want to become an administrator or a building administrator or a supervisor or an instructional specialist or what have you. Your journey is yours to own and figure out for you. So even if you see others who are trying different things, that may not be where you are in that moment, but it may be something you aspire to. So figure out your own timeline and the things that you want to do and how you want to get there. And don't compare yourself to others within that journey, because everybody's journey, like I said, is very different.
And I would also say to if you wait until you feel like you're prepared to take on a role, you may be always waiting. A lot of the group that's in on this call, we've been doing a book study this year, and this focus by Brene Brown, Dare to Lead, and one of the things that I've shared with the group is how much of an anxious person I am. And if I waited until I felt like I was fully prepared to take on a leadership role, then I would still be waiting on my first leadership role. So being willing to step out and beyond your comfort zone, as Ms. Carey said earlier, is certainly important. And then also being willing to we talk about that our students need to be willing to fail sometimes to really to push themselves. Same for us. Be willing to exit that comfort zone and try things that are new. And if it doesn't work out for you, that's okay. That just means that it might not be for you. But willing to try those different things and see what's out there for you.
I'm going to jump on right there, Stuart, because you've made multiple points that speak dear and true to me, and that's failing forward, right? So I didn't get this position by one application and one interview. It took several tries, as in that specialist role. And as most of you on this call are aware, education was not my strength when I was a student. It was not it just wasn't a strength for me. It was actually quite difficult. And so when my supervisors found out that I wanted to be an educator, I literally was laughed at. They're like, Caitlin, you didn't do so hot in school. Are you sure you want to be a teacher? But I knew that I wanted to be the change. I wanted to make the difference. So that key piece that you just said, Stuart, is so important of failing forward to continue to do what's best and improve our educational system. I'm also going to agree with Katrina as in putting yourself out there. So seeking different opportunities, whether that's presentations within your building, outside of your building. Specifically, I'm going to speak to feedback. Feedback is one of the most difficult things to give and to receive. But that is something that you have to be willing to receive to be able to improve your leadership skills and ability moving forward. So if I were to give any, piece of advice, other than putting yourself out there and checking different opportunities to see what aligns with your strengths as you are aspiring to be a leader, I would definitely focus on feedback, receiving feedback, being willing to digest it, and to improve your areas of specialty.
And Caitlin, you spoke to something that you used to talk about a few years ago when you were in your role as a specialist. You said you wanted to be the change, and that's why you wanted to become the teacher. And one of the things that you used to talk about consistently was knowing your why. And so as you decide, as those of us, as we move forward in our leadership, try to figure out what we're doing next. And it's important that we know the why behind it, not because we think it's the next logical step, but really intrinsically, what's your motivation? What's your why for pursuing that particular role? Because that's going to fuel what happens next for you. And also to have that passion for that. And that's a part of your why.
Absolutely.
I agree with everything they've said. Certainly take advantage of all opportunities, but always, and what's at the forefront should be, what is best for kids? What am I going to do to help some child be successful in their education? And how can I make it easier or make them be more successful?
Thank you all so much. And kind of a shameless plug for us here in the Office of Professional Learning. I feel like our division is really moving towards trying to provide more opportunities for you all to build capacity and strengthen some of those skills. So be on the lookout for opportunities for, different leadership roles, if presentations, things that have been shared. Those opportunities are out there, and, reach out to us if you have questions or need additional support. But be on the lookout, because we're definitely trying to increase those opportunities to this end to help you strengthen those skills and move forward on your journey. So thank you all so much. It's been a joy to have you all with me today. I think there's been some great wisdom and insight that's been shared, and I'm excited to share this out with the division. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.